stories. So one of my first, not like first cool story, but like one of the really cool things that happened to me. Um, this was actually really weird. It wasn't weird. It was just really interesting. It was actually in my first area. We talked to this guy walking down the street, and I can't remember what his name was, but he was an older guy. And this is kind of a story, I guess, about how a spiritual story, I guess, about how angels will literally guide you. Um, and we talked to this guy, and he told us that we need to go check out this house. He's like, "Okay, I'm not going to be there right now. I'm on my way into my studio, my art studio." He says he does paintings, things like that. And so we talked to this man, and he's like, "Hey, come by Friday at this time." We're like, "Okay, cool." And so we're like, "That's great." And he was like really excited and stuff. And so that was like a Tuesday, I think. And we left and continued on our day and went back to that house he told us to on Friday. And when we got to that house, we asked if that guy was there. And they're like, "What?" And we're like, "Is this guy here?" And it was actually the next door neighbor, because we knocked on the house and nobody answered. And they're like, "No, but his son is. Like, his son lives there, but his son went to the what's that called in English? To the cemetery, right? So went to the cemetery." And so we're like, "Okay, do you know when he's going to come back?" "Well, probably later, because today is the anniversary of one of the deaths of one of his family members." And we're like, "Okay, cool." So we came back we came back a couple times the next week, and he wasn't there. So the next week after that, we came back, and we got a hold of him. We saw it was the son. It was like a younger guy. And we're like, "Is your dad here? Like, we like talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he told us to come here." And he was all confused, and he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he told us to come here and to talk to you about the gospel, or like to teach him." And he's like, "Well, my dad's not here." I'm like, "Well, can we teach you?" And he's like, "Maybe on a different day." So we came back. So we came back again, and we asked if we can teach his dad. And he's like, "Listen, my dad's dead." And we're like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I wasn't here 2 weeks ago because I was at it was the year anniversary of his death." And we're like, "Okay, is this your dad's name?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we're like, "Is he an art? Like, does he do art at a studio?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we're like, "How?" Then we're here, okay, so if he's not here and he's dead, then who did we talk to in the street? And he's like, I don't know, but it can't be my dad." I'm like, "Okay, has the same name, went to the same job, at the same place, and told us to come to your house." So we're like, "Sir, this isn't a coincidence. Like, we are here to teach you. Like, this is like a divine thing." And it was so spiritual and so cool, because I think that was probably the most direct experience I had with angels literally leading me. Unless it was a total coincidence, which I don't think it was. But what was interesting was, even though that happened, the guy still said no. So he's like, and it was really interesting because you like feel the spirit, like we all felt the spirit, and you could tell he was feeling the spirit. And he sat there for maybe 5 minutes, and we asked him again, and he sat there and didn't answer. And then he was like, "No, it'd be better if you didn't come back." And so what's so interesting is you may have experiences like that, but it's still up to the agency of the person, right? And maybe he accepted some missionaries later on. Maybe he's still going to, or maybe it was preparation to eventually accept the missionaries or the gospel. But that was probably the most direct relation, I guess, I had with that. And then you'll be led through this from the Spirit, by the Spirit, throughout your whole mission, with things you're supposed to do, places you're supposed to go. If you listen to the Spirit, you'll have success, right? So, I mean, there's so many spiritual experiences. Maybe one of the hardest lessons I had was, this is kind of funny, I was praying for patience. Worst idea ever. Never do it. Yeah, you're just like, no, like, praying for Christ-like attributes is probably not a good idea. Like, it's a good idea. But, like, you get some great experiences from it. So, one of the best ones, I was on Marinduque, so the small island, and we're the only missionaries to have bikes left in the whole mission. And because the missionaries before us, he, like, split his head open and stuff. Love the kid. He's great. And if he heard me say that, he'd be like, no, I didn't, but he did. He spent more time hugging the ground than he did on his bike. So, so the president started getting like, he's like, hey, if the bikes break, don't fix them. Bikes are done. But in this area, we'd have like a 21-kilometer walk if it wasn't like there and back, if it wasn't for the bikes. And at past 6 o'clock, everybody was in bed. Nobody was outside doing their stuff. So none of the tricycles would be going, so like we couldn't get to this area and back. So we had bikes. But it was up in the mountains, so it was like really hilly and stuff. So we started off, me and my companion and I, and like I said, I was praying for patience at the time so I could become more patient with the situation, with other people, with myself, with my companion, things like that. And we start off, and I didn't know this at the time, but my back tire, like the brake, was pretty much on my wheel. So I didn't know this. And it's been like that for like a week. And it was so hard to pedal, and I was just like, my legs are so tired. I didn't sleep well the night before. I was just getting over like being sick and stuff. And so we start going, and we're going way up in the mountains, and there's just this huge wind coming from the opposite direction. Like we're like crawling like on our bikes. It's so slow. And so I start going like that, and I just bought a new umbrella that day too because it was supposed to rain. And I never got an umbrella, so I got an umbrella. And so I'm going, I have the umbrella with me, and it starts to rain a little bit, so I take it out, and I'm like using it. So the huge wind's coming that's like acting like a parachute and pulling me back, and I'm trying to keep the rain off. So finally get going, the rain stops, I close it. I'm covered in sweat, like absolutely drenched and in water. And so we keep going, and we start going up this hill, and we came down the other side, and somehow my umbrella got caught in my wheel well of my tire. So it gets pulled out of my hand and shredded into pieces. So my brand new umbrella is gone. I was like, okay. I was like, it's all good. Like, we still got people to go teach. So we kept going, and then it starts to rain again. And so now I'm just covered and I'm just completely drenched, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you still have like 7 hours left of the day, you know. And so we go up to teach our first appointments, and we get punted. So nobody, even the people we were talking to on the street, members, investigators, anybody, was pretty much like, no, like we don't have time from 2 o'clock in the morning to like 8 o'clock at night. And so probably about at 7 or 6, it's probably about at 6, we were leaving one of the appointments and riding our bikes, and I went through this puddle. And you know, the carabao I mentioned before, well, they're big animals. They have really big poops. And so I pooped in this puddle, and I didn't see it. And I rode through it, and it just sprayed water and carabao poop all over me. So I'm covered in water, poop, completely drenched, so tired. My umbrella's broken, and everybody's punting us. We go to another member's house to like try to teach them, and because they had somebody else there. And they were just like, oh, well, you smell really bad. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You should probably go home. And I was like, no, I'm being patient. I have to be a diligent elder. Like, I can't go home yet. And so I was like, just one more after this. And so we went and taught another person, and we actually got a lesson at the very end. And so then we're like, okay, it's time to go home. So then we had to start our 10-kilometer bike ride back. And so we start riding, and we get maybe about a kilometer outside of that little village that we just went to, and my back tire pops. So here I am. It's like 9:30 at night. It's supposed to be like, we're supposed to be getting home. It was probably like 9:20 when it popped, so we would have gotten home on time. And we're like 10 kilometers outside of where our house is. I'm covered in poop, completely soaked, just broke my new umbrella, my bike's broken, and then we had to walk from there all the way home. And we didn't get home till like 11 o'clock. So it was great because we also had to like drag our bikes. But it was funny because like at first, like throughout the day, I was like, this sucks. I was like, this is okay. Like it's kind of what it's supposed to be going, but like this kind of sucks. And it's funny though, because when that happened, when my bike broke and I got off my bike and just started walking it, I just like started laughing. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like this is, it became funny to me, I guess, because I'm like, I felt like I kind of heard the voice like, well, you prayed for patience, so here you go, you know? And it was just kind of a funny experience because by the time I got home, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I had to take a shower. I'm covered in stuff. And it was just really interesting because you'll have experiences like that, right? And whether you think they're bad or good is like all up to your point of view, you know? But if you just remember that everything that's happening is for your own good, then things like that just become funny. So instead of getting mad, you laugh, and instead of getting upset, you just have a cool story to tell. So yeah, so that was kind of like the most, not the most, but that was one of like the ridiculous things that happened to me. I was just like, what's happening? So those are probably two of my favorite stories, but.
Awesome.